What's up, y'all? Welcome to Culinary Mechanic. Hey, I found another member of my tribe. Her name is Asia Beard. She's going to join us on the podcast today. And I'm telling you, this lady is bad to the bone. She's got a project here and a project there. She runs Ask Asia Restaurant Consulting after spending a bunch of years in Vegas, just doing the thing, raising a kid. I mean, burnout, systems, yeah, just the whole thing. Like, she's one of my people. I really think you're gonna dig it. Um, I can't wait. I just the conversation just goes to a place of really understanding what it takes to run a good restaurant and run it like a business. And I think that there's some fun insights along the way. So check it out. Here we go. You're listening to the Culinary Mechanic podcast. I'm your host, Simon Zaturku, the founder of Culinary Mechanic, a restaurant advisory firm focused on making kitchens and restaurants run like well-oiled machines. With this podcast, we aim to bring you insights, strategies, tools, and tactics, and sometimes just good old advice and stories that are going to help you run your restaurant better. I hope you dig it because honestly, it's a real labor of love. One thing you could do that would help me a whole lot is to go anywhere that you listen to podcasts and leave a 5-star review. That'll help get the word out so that more people will hear this podcast and hopefully we can help more restaurants run just a little better. Now please, enjoy the show. Today I'm joined by Asia Beard of Ask Asia Restaurant Consulting. Hi, Asia.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for
Welcome
having
to
me.
the show.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. We met, gosh, about a month ago, right?
Yep, it's been about a month.
Time flies when you're having fun. Los Angeles, or I'm sorry, California restaurant show, right?
Yes.
Lots of cool people, but you and I just kept getting drawn into talking to you, and I couldn't stop. So I knew
Oh,
that it was the right thing for you to come on and talk to us here.
thank you.
So, sort of in the fashion of Culinary Mechanic, let's just press on the gas and say, how'd you get into the industry?
So industry, I would say was first just hospitality. I wanted to be hotels. I wanted to own hotels, run hotels, went to UNLV into their hospitality program. And when I graduated, started working in a hotel, but I realized very quickly that restaurants pay more. So
Okay.
had a cooler story than that, but I ended up switching gears, going into the restaurant side, as a manager, assistant general manager, and just kind of moved my way up. And then I just stayed. I stayed
Nice.
in Las Vegas for about 14 years. I'm originally from Los Angeles. So when I came back, I stayed with restaurants, worked as a general manager and then moved into corporate dining and worked with Compass and Aramark as a food service director. And
Oh,
then I
wow.
would say about 26 years in, I was pretty burnt out. 18 of those years, management, helping open restaurants, run restaurants. But I had developed all this knowledge and I'm like, what can I do with it? So I was like, oh, I can be a consultant. I can share my knowledge with people and make my own schedule and have all this freedom, or so you think, right? But I ended up starting a consulting business almost 6 years ago. We've been in it about 5.5 years now, and I just haven't looked back. I get to still have my toes, feet, all of that in the hospitality world, but then I can kind of step away a little bit if I need to, and just take some time to myself, which I didn't have before. So love the industry. I love what it does as far as bridging people together through food and just hospitality. And I can't imagine being in another industry anytime soon. So here I
Awesome.
am.
Awesome. It's interesting you say the
Mhm.
the the B word, right? Like burnout. I mean, that's literally why I'm sitting here talking to people on the interwebs,
Mhm.
right? Like I completely like every time I hear the word, I'm like, ah. But at the same time, I'm like, man, there's parts of me that want to help people stay away from burnout, but I think that there's parts of me that go, it's okay,
Yeah,
burn out, like get crispy and like, and then figure out what else is there,
that's how
because
you know you're doing well. Yep.
yeah, unfortunately, right? I was talking to a couple of restaurant
Unfortunately.
operators and a guy who works for, what is that thing? Top Golf, right? When they go and it's like a
Oh yeah.
gamified driving
Uh-huh.
range, right? Top Golf, crazy. And I said something
Mhm.
about burnout, and this guy, he goes, well, burnout, that's standard operating procedure in this business. And I was like, yeah, no, man. Like
Right?
there's a lot to life
Mhm.
besides just like grinding, you know, and
Mhm.
not feeling. I mean, for me, burnout was loss of control, right? Like I don't have a say in
Mm.
how hard I'm working because they're pushing me harder than I can push myself,
Yeah.
which that's something because I push pretty damn
Mhm.
hard. So yeah, it's interesting.
And I
I
think
love
for
that.
me, that burnout. Mhm.
Go
Go
go.
ahead.
No, I want to hear what you and
Oh,
burnout.
I was just saying that yeah, it came out quickly because I'm a single mom. And so when I was in Vegas, I was spending more time at work than I was with my daughter. I would drop her off early daycare before school started so I could get to work at a certain time. And then after school, I would pick her up. She'd be like the last kid in the daycare. And then I would take her to another daycare, like an evening daycare, because I had to go back and either count industry or inventory or check the numbers or some other task that I just needed to do that I couldn't do throughout the day because I had a really busy account. And I was just like, I'm spending more time with my team than I am with my own daughter, and it's not healthy. And after multiple years of that, and especially there were some times where I'm like, you got to come just back to the job with me because I'm like, mom can't do the daycare for the third time this week. And she would be, asleep in the office while I'm counting inventory. And I'm like, there's just got to be a better way to do this.
You know?
Um, and I kept, one of the challenges for the industry is like if you are busy, you only have so many team members, right? And so if the line is busy, you jump in to help. But if you're jumping in to help, then that puts you behind on the work that you need to do. And there's nobody else that maybe can do what you can do. So you got to wait till the day is over and then you do it. And so it just compounds if that happens multiple times. And so I just feel like that burnout came for me quickly because I was just doing way too much, and didn't have enough kind of team members that I could delegate some of that work to. And so it just all fell on me. And so I feel like, once I said enough is enough and I made my mind up, I was just like, nope, this is it. I had a hard line in the sand and I left on good terms, but I just was like, I know that I can't keep this up. It's unhealthy. My daughter's growing up without me. And this is just not how I want my life to be. But
Yeah.
I do think there needs to be a change in the culture of hospitality because it is a given. Like we even sometimes I know when I'm helping clients and we start talking about, well, should we put that person on salary or should we put them hourly? I'm like, my instinct is like put them on salary because then you can work them as often, as long as you want to. But we should shift that. We shouldn't want to work somebody 12 or 14-hour days, right? Even if they are single, right? We make that she's not that person single, it doesn't matter. No, they have a life and they want to do other things besides just work for you. And I think the other thing too is like I'm working this hard for a corporation. Why am I not doing it for myself? Right? Why don't I start my own business and put this time and energy into that so that way
Absolutely.
I can reap those benefits. And I will say that has been the most rewarding part of making that transition because I've been able to scale myself and my business much faster than what that corporation could do, whether it's a bonus or a promotion. I'm making more now than what I was after being in the industry for 26 years, after being in business for 5.
Yeah.
And so the math just isn't mathing after a while when you start thinking about how much time you are giving to someone else.
Yeah.
And that's not to say everybody go quit your job now, just go work for yourself. I do think there's value in learning on someone else's dime and getting that experience through these
Totally.
corporations because they teach you about systems. But at some point, you could probably do things just as well as them if you're, successful in that world and you enjoy it, but do it for yourself. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that some people have said to me like, well, you have all this time in the industry. Do you wish that you'd started doing your own thing earlier? And I'm like, no, I wasn't ready,
Mhm.
and I'm
Yeah, I
not.
wasn't ready.
And some people are like, well, you'll never be ready. Well, okay, that's your analysis of it. But for me, like, I think there was just a moment in time where it was time to say, okay, I've proven everything I can prove, right? I got to a place where I was running
Mm-hmm.
7 restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
from the back of the house side, and so it was like, okay, did that. We survived COVID, and now like my
Mm-hmm.
body parts ache and my brain aches.
Right.
And quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
I was still learning. Of course, you learn every day, but like I wasn't learning at the voracious pace that I think I'd come to learn. You know?
Yeah.
And so I think that
And I
for
think
me, that
that's,
was a lot of it.
like you said. Yeah, you definitely know. There's everybody has their time limit. And I think for me, I was being groomed for like the next level up, and I wasn't excited anymore. I was like, I don't know if I really want to even do that. Like, yes, they always kind of sell you on the extra perks. Oh, you'll get a company car at that point, a vehicle, which, hey, that sounds great. Or you'll be able to do this. I'm like, that just doesn't sound good. Like, I'd rather have that time with my daughter. I'd rather go on vacation and actually, like, I was that person who like lost vacation time because I just never took it. Like, that's how crazy I
Oh,
was with it,
yeah.
right? I mean, I see that all the time, how people can't even imagine it now, but yeah,
I
I would be the
lost,
type, you just pay me for it. I'll just work.
I worked for a company that went through a restructuring,
Mm-hmm.
and when they came out the other side, their CEO said, "Oh no, we're going to cap this number." So then it was capped. So I lost some off that. And
Mm.
then I moved from California to Washington. And in
Mm-hmm.
California, they would pay it out. In
Mm-hmm.
Washington, they would pay 1 week. I lost the equivalent of $13,000 in vacation pay.
Oh,
And so
oh,
from that, and that was like 15 years ago. And so that for me was like, okay, now I'm going to take every fucking vacation. And in fact,
yeah.
and this has become something that I try to train and teach now is I try to plan out my year like as
Yep.
much as possible. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take. I know that I'm gonna take a vacation. Like every year, we get out of town for the 4th of July, so I block off.
Mm.
Like I put it into
That's
things. And when I was working at sort of small corporate level, had 7 chefs and 14 sous chefs, and I was responsible for covering their vacations. I
mm-hmm.
became an airline. I blacked out dates. Right? I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
nope.
Right?
They'd be like, well, I want to go on vacation at that. I'm like, nope,
Like, nope. All right. Yep.
nope. Those
Mm-hmm.
3 days, no. Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
guys can switch, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
work 10 days and then you work 10 days and that's okay with you and everybody gets all that, then I'm good
Yep.
with it. You can have your
Yep. You're playing
vacation time.
Jenga. Yep.
Right?
Vacation Jenga.
But
Mm-hmm.
not yeah, no, I learned that lesson the hard way, you know. And it was the first big corporate I'd ever worked for, aside from some hotels back in my younger years.
Mhm.
And when I first got there, they're like, "Chef, you're working too hard." I'm like, "Well, this is how chefs work."
Yeah.
And they're like, "No, no, you're working too hard." And then the restructuring happened, and all of a sudden I was the hero because I had results. And other
Mm.
people were like, "Well, I can't get those results unless I work more." I'm like, "You better believe it." I don't know about you, but I did not get into the restaurant business to spend all my time in a cramped little office. I love being in the kitchen, out on the floor. And if you're nodding your head right now, I want to introduce you to an amazing company called Starfish. Look, I've gotten to know their CEO, Jordan, recently, and what they're building really impresses me. They're using AI to read your P&L, and they're going to email you actionable insights every week so you can lower your costs and increase revenue. Best part is you don't have to spend time digging through your P&Ls, poring over reports in that cramped little office. Starfish is going to do that for you so you can get back to the part of the business that you love. If you're interested, go to their website, use starfish.com. That's USE starfish.com. And tell them Simon sent you. I think now I start to look at people working 13 and 14-hour days.
Mhm.
And the question I ask some of my clients is, so do you think you're making better decisions in that 14-hour day than you would
Right.
if you worked 9 hours? And they're like,
Yep.
no, but I need to be there. I'm like, okay, but if your job as the manager or the chef or the sous chef, whatever, that manager piece, your job is to be the guardian of that
Right.
business. Are you guarding its best interests?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, even if you're only on the line or you're only bussing tables, is that diminishing your ability to make great decisions day in and day out because you're
Mm-hmm.
so fucking tired?
Right. Oof.
Right? And if it isn't, great, you're Superman. Woo! right? But I think if you're human, then there's a certain degradation in it all, right?
Absolutely. I had a district manager tell me, and it just changed my whole perspective. And I became better at delegating when he came to visit and I was working the register because we were short staffed. And he's just like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, we're short. He's like, yeah, but you should be the last person that's on the register. He's like, I pay you too much for you to be ringing up customers. Your value is so much greater than that. If something happens over there and they need a manager, you're stuck here. Or if I need you to be in this meeting to make a decision on, like, you're stuck here. Like, you have put limits on yourself and you've devalued yourself by doing this, that, like, I would rather the line be a little bit longer instead of you being on the register to help to free you up to go and actually manage the place. I'm paying you to run the business, not be a cashier. And
Yeah.
so it immediately kind of flipped the switch for me. And so then I became better with delegating, because you're right. Like, there's only so much brain power that we have that actually is going to make the solid decisions we need in a certain amount of time. And if we are overrunning it and constantly just boom, boom, like, staying kind of with blinders on and not doing what we need to do and resting and recuperating, then we're not going to make those decisions. That the thing that qualified us to be there is going to go out the window. And so it is critical that the culture of how we treat management, and then how we just, even look at how our team is built and who we bring in, we have to be better. We have to bring in people that can do the work we need them to do and pay them the wage that they should be making for them to do it. Right.
Yep. Yep.
And so I know when COVID happened, just so many things that we constantly sweep under the rug, it just all came out. It was just like everybody got to see all of our dirty laundry, and it was good. I'm like, good. Let them see the people that you're paying under the table because you don't want to pay them. You don't want to pay taxes, or, pay them the minimum wage, and you're sneaking by. Let them see that, because, it needs to not be something that we do or normalize. We need to be better. And I know it's challenging, especially as somebody who is now going to be on the other side and being an owner and having to pay these wages, but I need to feel good about what I'm doing. I want to be able to sleep easy. I want to know that I'm doing the right thing, not just by myself, but also to the team that I bring in. So
Yeah. I
we're
think
gonna
the
get
other
there.
thing for me in that is,
Mhm.
if it's not just the delegating, but it's the teaching, right? Like,
Absolutely.
if you're not able to be free to be like coaching in the moment, or
Hmm.
seeing what's happening and coaching later, you aren't developing the
Hmm.
people. And that's how we get into this downward spiral that the economy has like taught us to become scarcity movers, right? Like, okay,
Hmm.
I am going to cut. So instead of taking the half an hour to teach that person how to do more of the job, more of other jobs, and make them more useful, we're leveling down rather than
Hmm.
leveling up, right? And
Yep.
when
Hmm.
money's tight, the first thing you do is you hold on,
Yeah.
right? You
Yep.
scrape it
Yep.
up, you scrape in the edges, right? But
Hmm.
I see it, especially in the back of the house, where I look around and I go, cooks are not what they were 10 years ago, right? The
Oh,
talent pool is shallow, right? They're
there,
just
and
they're
it's
just
the
not
same for
as
front of house.
good. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, right? Like, I remember the days when you'd look at a busboy and you'd go, God, how does he do that? Or how did they do that? Whatever. I don't care. Right? Like, because I remember some of the best bussers ever were these little tiny ladies from the south of
Hmm.
Mexico that they can
Hmm.
handle 3 times what any white kid could do. Right?
Wow.
It's just like, what? But okay, now like you take that, you partner them up, and you get them to understand each other, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden, like, there's the investment. And what is interesting out of all of that is you save money, you can save money. To all you
Hmm.
people out there listening, you can save money by training in the long run.
Absolutely.
It's just an investment now,
It's
right? If your
exactly.
team is fully cross-trained and like dialed, you can do more with less,
Yep.
right? And then you can afford to pay them what they're worth. But it
Hmm.
takes like momentum, and it takes like diligence in doing that. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, I think
You
that
have to be intentional with it. That has to be part of your own culture as the owner and what you create there. Everybody cross-train, everybody has more than one job, not because you're trying to exploit, but just because, hey, if that person is running late or they have a family emergency or just whatever happens, they don't show up, that station isn't fully shut down because that person's not here. Or you have somebody else that can jump right in. So I'm a big advocate of training, cross training, and then investing in that because that investment is going to pay off, twofold than when you need it.
at least, yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You know, I was talking to a chef from New York City, and he brought back something to me that I hadn't thought about in a little while, and that was he said something along the lines of, "I learned that I had to move a little faster if I wanted to learn." And I was like,
Mm.
"Huh." He goes, "I learned that if I had all my shit dialed 15 minutes before service, I could run down to the butcher side of things in the hotel. I could go down and like
Mm-hmm.
spend 15 minutes with the butcher."
Mm-hmm.
Or he goes, or he worked for David Boulay in New York City, right? Who was
Mm-hmm.
famous for like throwing specials out like at the last minute. Like
Mm-hmm.
he apparently rolled in one afternoon with like a whole pig on his shoulder and said, "Here, we're gonna do a special thing, and here's a couple bags of vegetables." And all of a sudden it was like, "Okay, you need to do this, you need to do this." And
Mm-hmm.
he goes, "If I hadn't been already ready, I would have been in the weeds."
Yep.
He goes, he says, the culture of cooks and employees desiring to learn and making themselves more efficient to learn for their own sake is,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's fallen by the wayside, but I don't feel it as much as I used to. I feel
No.
like there's a certain culture of, well, it's their job to teach me. Right. And I don't know. I grew up in a time where if I wanted to learn, like you get your station prepped and set and clean, and okay, I have time.
Yep.
Hey, Mr. Saute guy, I'm the grill guy. Can you show me how to do that pickup so that because you have 10, 20 of those a night, can I
Mm-hmm.
pick up that dish for you once in a while?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I worked with a guy in a Four Seasons, and he'd be like, Simon, can you just pick up three pasta primaveras for me? I'm like, yes, because
Nice.
and it became that he would sort of set up his station so that pasta primavera was like closest to me, so that I could just do that for him once in a while, and it
Mm-hmm.
did,
Yep.
but time's gone by, whatever. But it doesn't have to be, I guess, is
Yeah.
my point.
It doesn't, yeah.
All
But
right.
it has changed. So it's
So you
great
got
idea.
in,
Mm-hmm.
you burnt yourself out, you pulled yourself out,
Yep.
5.5, 6 years. Obviously, you're helping people run their businesses. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
about some of the biggest challenges that restaurateurs are facing in your world. Tell me what's going on.
I gotta give some personal experience. I mean, I have definitely clients who have run into this as well, but as someone who's now in the process of co-owning a new food concept, I am running into access to capital barriers. And I
Oh,
really, you know, naively thought that that would not be an issue for me. So, we talk about this a lot. I've worked for several different small business centers, and we specialize in helping minority business owners or underserved population. And it would always come up, we don't have access to capital, all of these things. And sometimes I would kind of think in the back of my mind, well, in order to get access to capital, you have to have a good credit score. You may need to be able to leverage something, maybe own a property or some kind of asset that you can leverage, or you just need to be able to show that you can pay it back, have great financials. So I used to kind of think sometimes, well, people must be missing one or two of those three things, and that's
right.
why they're getting denied. So, fast forward now to me a month ago saying, okay, I'm going to start this new venture with my partner. We need access to capital because, you want to kind of leverage other people's money to help you grow your business and expand.
Right.
I go to a bank that I've banked with for years, a credit union. I won't say its name. I asked for really just a loan to kind of start some things off, not even what I actually needed. I was trying to just kind of put some feelers out and got denied. And got denied. My credit score was 745 on the denial letter. And I was like, well, that's odd, and I thought it was a fluke. I genuinely was like, well, maybe this is just not the right, bank to go to. I should have went somewhere else that specializes in small business loans. So then I went to my primary bank where I have, a business account, and I've had a car loan with them. I've had a mortgage with them. I've had 2 credit cards with them. I have a savings, and then I literally have 5 or 6 accounts with them where they have seen transactions and good history. They denied me as well. And I'm like, something weird is happening. So just so you know, like, I own a property in Vegas and I co-own another property out here in Los Angeles. Both of them have tons of equity in them. I even thought, well, maybe I'll go and get a line of credit against the equity. Well, the one of them, because it's a rental, I couldn't use it. Well, the other one, they needed it to be my primary residence. Well, my mom, it's her primary residence. So I'm not going to leverage that, even though we own it together.
Right.
And got denied. And I'm like, what is happening? I have an excellent credit score. I've got properties and I have great financials. I made over 6 figures last year. I was like, what is going on? And so now thankfully have found a nonprofit who was going to give me the loan that I needed. I asked for a certain amount. And I was told by 2 of the different agents that I would get that full amount at a certain interest rate. By the time the underwriter got involved, it was down to a third of what I asked for and a much higher interest rate. They told me the zip code that I lived in didn't qualify for a program that would offer a special discount rate. So essentially, I lived in an area that made too much money, but now you're taking away the amount of money that I need, even though I have the paperwork to show that I can pay this back. And so it's been very, very frustrating. Frustrating because I didn't think it would happen to me, and think it's even more frustrating when it happens to you. It's different when you see other people go through it and you're like, well, maybe there's this other reason that you're not telling me. But I'm like, oh no, it's not that. And I'm not here to place blame. I don't know how that financial system works and why they've given me, such a hard time with it. Maybe I'm asking the wrong people. I don't know, but I just know I've asked the sources that I have been told can help,
Right.
and they're not helping. So we're going to make this work. I'm going to take the loan that I can get and then leverage some other things. But that by far is what is cutting people off at the knees before they can even get started. You in order to start, especially in our industry, because every little thing costs money, right? When you are just trying to buy equipment, just think about what it costs to get a refrigerator, or small wares, or uniforms for your team, a POS system. I mean, all the things that you need to actually get this business up and running the right way, not doing it sort of kind of janky and the incorrect way, but to do it the right way, you need money, right?
Yep.
And so, to kind of run into this issue repeatedly, not just once, not just twice, but now 3 times, I'm like, something is happening, something is going on that isn't making sense. And it is beyond frustrating. It almost feels like people don't want to see you win. And in a time where, we're constantly being told, follow your passion, be a small business ownership is the way to generational wealth. And this is how you grow. But if you don't help me kind of get to that point, how do you ever expect me to grow beyond this? So definitely access to capital. I would also even say access to just understanding all of the resources and all of the costs that are needed to get launched. That's another area where I'm seeing people struggle. So taking off my ownership hat down to my consulting hat, I am seeing people make decisions before they fully understand the whole process. I get clients all the time who they've never worked in the restaurant industry, but they want to own a restaurant, or they want to own a food truck. And I'm like, I really think you should experience this first from a different perspective. Don't just think of it as it's glitz and glamour because that's what you see on TV. It's really not. It's a very difficult industry to be in because our profit margins are very low, but our expenses are very high. And if you are not making the right decisions at every step of the process, you will very easily lose money, lose your shirt, lose your everything that you have, you will lose because it just costs so much to keep the train running. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of my little soapbox right now is, why are we not getting access to capital when we have the means to pay it back? We're checking all the boxes that you've asked us to check and we still can't get the money. And then why are we not getting access to just the resources that are going to guide us to make the right decision so that way we can not fail? I just don't want to see people fail. I'm always rooting for the underdogs. That's just kind of my personality. But I also just want to see people thrive because I feel like when small businesses win, especially in communities that don't have a lot of small businesses, it uplifts the whole community, the people that are coming in there, the neighborhoods. It gives people something to shoot for. It gives people excited. It gives them, motivating, figures around them to inspire them to also follow their dreams and do something similar. So
Yeah.
kind of went on a tangent.
I no, I love it. I think it's important. It's clearly something that's close to your world right now, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that
Mhm.
I think that my cynic hat gets thrown on, and I go, the fucking system's rigged against the little guy,
Right. Hmm.
as I look at, I actually had this conversation recently with a friend. We were talking about how, like, yes, it's amazing that minimum wage is going up, and hopefully we're getting closer to a living
A
wage.
livable.
But
Mhm.
what's actually happening, and I haven't really wrapped my whole head around, is I don't know if you see it. Well, you probably do. The smaller restaurants can't keep up. The only ones that can keep up are the two, four, six, and above. Like if you have like five restaurants, you probably have enough capital to
Mhm.
swing things, and you probably have enough culture to
Yep.
keep people together. But
Mhm.
the small groups are getting to be medium groups. The medium groups are getting to be big groups. The giant megalith companies are getting more megalither. Pardon me, that's not
Yeah.
English, but that's okay. You know what I mean? Like these giants, the places that have 500 units are
Mhm.
expanding. And it's like,
Mhm.
but yet mom and pop, you know,
Yeah.
or grandma and grandpa are
Yep.
dying, unless they've
Yes.
already been rooted in the community. And it's
Yeah.
weird because I want the minimum wage to go up for the people, but it's
Mhm.
like there's I think that it's understanding how to tweak the concepts, right? Like I'm seeing, well, I don't know
Mhm.
about you, but I'm up here in Seattle and I see more restaurants foregoing service, and there's more counter restaurants, and there's more quick serve stuff happening because they can do it with,
Mhm.
you can have the cooks and then you cross train one cook to be a cashier and then everybody rotates through
Yeah. Yep.
cashier, and now
Mhm.
you don't have to have anything front of the house whatsoever, right?
I know
um
it's so funny. I'm having that whole debate right now with my partner, but absolutely. And even when I advise clients, I'm always like, you've got to have a self-serve kiosk. You want to be able to almost eliminate a body if you don't have to have it. So that way it can save you a little bit of labor and have this kiosk. But what the self-serve kiosk. But what we've been going back and forth is she's like, let's just start with those self-serve kiosks. I'm like, no. I was like, I am too much of a front of house hospitality. I want them to have the big smile. I want them to be greeted. I want them to have an opportunity to talk to someone and experience what we are putting out before we just throw them into a kiosk. So we will still have the self-serve kiosk, to be clear, but we'll still have a cashier, but that cashier will be cross-trained so they can do other things and
yeah
not feel like it's just, oh, they're just there taking orders. No, they're doing way more than that. But still being able to give people a service element that so many restaurants are getting away from. I mean, if you go, like I'm a big boba person, so if you go to almost any boba shop now, there's no cashiers. It's you're doing everything on a self-serve kiosk.
that's
So if
so
I go
weird.
somewhere new and I have questions, guess what? I'm bugging the person in the back, like, hey, can you answer a question? Because I want them to know, like, I need to talk to a live person. But it is something that like I feel is happening much faster, probably sped up because wages are going up. But also just because I think our culture is sort of shifting towards less human contact. I have a
Yeah.
16-year-old daughter. She'd much rather text you than call her. I mean, if you call her, it literally will freak her out. Like, why are they calling me? Or why do I have to call someone?
I,
Because she would rather just do or go to the kiosk do. And so we are addressing that. You have to kind of grow and transition your business to accommodate sort of these new habits.
right.
But I do feel like that's something that we're slipping away a little bit too fast for me. And especially as I won't even get on the AI box, but as that happens, it's like I still want to be able to just ask a question to a human being, be able to make eye contact with somebody, be able to smile, maybe even chit chat if they have the time, and just kind of get to know. who that person is while I'm waiting for the food to be, made. Because it helps cement that experience for me. And again, I'm coming from a hospitality background, so maybe other people don't need that, but I enjoy that. I look for that in restaurants. But if there is a convenience factor, that I'm looking for, then I know where to do that as well. So I do like having those choices. But yeah, people are definitely um using less and less people to get the job done. And the first place that they're cutting is in the front of house.
Yeah. I I think that people think they want convenience and efficiency, but
Mm-hmm.
boy, when they get hospitality, when they
Oof.
get it proper, right? When someone greets them at the door, they like something, like little neurons start firing that haven't been firing. You
Yep.
just see them light up.
Mhm.
Uh, the kiosk thing is very interesting. I worked with a quick serve chain, and they went with a hybrid approach. Um they put a kiosk in a couple of their restaurants, but a couple, the counter space was too small. And so, and this is not necessarily a plug for Toast, but the Toast people were very receptive and they were listening. And
Mhm.
so they got them into the handhelds.
Yep.
And this has become like one of those four restaurants had the kiosk to start, and they've taken it out.
Mhm.
And now, because what they've found is they just cross-trained somebody.
Yep.
And so that they could jump on the handheld, and they really dialed in the handheld the best way they could.
Hmm.
And now that handheld person will just pick it up and jump out into the line.
Right.
And now it is hospitality on fire.
Yep.
It's so great. I'm like, oh, this is so good.
Yeah, because now
You know,
there's not even a counter in between them, right? They're like right there in your
right.
space talking to you. You can feel their energy a little bit more. And so yeah, it changes the experience. Absolutely.
And in one, it's this like bubbly, like 17-year-old
Hmm.
little girl, and she's just excited to talk to people. And I'm like, okay, this is perfect. You figured that one out, right? Like
Yep.
you hired correctly.
Yeah.
And then
Good.
she also like is really smart and organized, so she ends up bagging a lot of orders and doing all that, and so it's
Hmm.
perfect, right?
Nice.
And the owner's like, she's going to be a manager by next year.
Yep.
Like, that's great. All of
Yep.
those things are great, but like I think finding those things. I mean, I talked to one lady who runs a pizzeria, and she's got a big, huge horseshoe bar, and she's like, she actually let me go for a couple months. I was basically advising her chefs. I would just sit
Okay.
once every couple of weeks, I would sit with her chef and sous chef, and just we talk through communication stuff. We talk through leadership. We talk, I just look around and go, you're wasting time and money, and I just did little surveys, but
Hmm.
mostly it was communication and leadership.
Hmm.
And about December of last year, she got all the figures and facts from the new rising uh, minimum wage. And she goes, Simon, I can't afford to have you through the winter. It's like, okay,
Mm.
that's okay. Right.
Hmm.
And I'm like, you call me when you need me.
Yeah.
5 months later, May comes around. Hey, can you come? I'm having a couple issues. A
Hmm.
couple things have slid away since you've been gone. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
no. Have an hour-long meeting with the two guys, sit them down, brand new sous chef, get him dialed, uh, meet with him, and then meet with the chef, and then 3 weeks later, the front of the bar manager comes to me, and she goes, "Oh my God, thank you. That's amazing. I don't
Hmm.
know what you did." I'm like, I just got them thinking about being the leader again. But
Hmm.
my point with all that was, when she cut me, she also cleared a section of two stools and kind of put like an ordering area at
Hmm.
at the corner of her bar. And
Hmm.
now she runs one less host and one less server, and the bartenders, who were not necessarily slacking, but now they're generating more sales, and so she's got two less bodies on an average night on the
Hmm.
floor, and that
Mm.
has changed her business model.
Oh yeah.
And she's
Mhm.
like, I hate it. I want more service. I want more little girls welcoming you in and all that.
Mhm.
She's, I just can't do it.
Mhm.
And I think that for me is like that is a bellwether of, gosh, this is what's going to have to happen in order for you have, like, I think, again, for all you out there listening, and you're
Mhm.
running a restaurant, like, if you want to succeed, you're going to have to think differently.
Yep.
right? You're going to have to understand where things are painful. I talk to a guy on a regular basis, and he's a consultant out of Vancouver, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And his thing is amazing. It's truly amazing. But he looks at meals, whether it's meals per man hour or covers per labor hour, or one of those, whatever. He looks at productivity, and
Mm-hmm.
instead of trying to drive it through the roof, he likes to understand um where you're starting to burn people out, right? And so there's a
Mm-hmm.
top side threshold and a bottom side threshold of that
Mm-hmm.
productivity, and he just like he isolates it, puts it on a graph, and then starts driving total guest spend, right? And really
Mm-hmm.
looking at how they're like, hey, like don't have a day where you're spending too much and then the next day you feel like you have to cut. And so now the graph goes way down and all these different things. He goes, aim for the middle of this optimal productivity zone and your people will be happier. And he's
Mm-hmm.
he's like changing retention rates from things like
Ooh,
30% to 70%, and
that's
he's getting
awesome.
it's amazing. And it's all because he's looking at data that most people don't look at.
Mm-hmm.
Or they
Mm-hmm.
look at it and they go, yeah, yeah, productivity.
Yeah.
Right? I worked for a company where we had a bottom level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was $110 per labor hour or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. It was this ridiculous number. And if the number was below that, the owners were on my head. They were like, what's going on? Why aren't we more productive? Right. And then the stores that were in the like 140s and 150s, they were like, yeah. And I'm going, yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
those guys are ready to revolt.
Yeah.
Right. Like the cooks in that kitchen are like pissed
Yeah.
and they
There's
call off
definitely a
on a
fine
regular
balance.
basis.
There's
Right.
definitely when you, yeah, like you said, with the corporate places, there's somebody, at the corporate office that's pinching numbers, and they're not really necessarily in the field with you. And so I've had some of those challenges where they'll come and it's like, well, you should be at this and this. And I'm like, yeah, but do you know that the way that this is situated, the person has to walk X amount of feet to go here and do this. And so that other place is much smaller. Everything's more compacted. Da, da, da. I mean, there's all these other variables that can come into play, but there is such a thing as even burning out your team to the point where it doesn't matter how much money they're making. I've had people who are like, I don't care about the overtime anymore. I just want to be off. Like, I just need my time back, right? Because,
Right.
overtime looks good on the check for a little bit, especially around the holidays. You want to make some extra money. The people, we just aren't meant to work at that pace that we put them through.
Uh-uh.
And how much more is it going to cost you if that person quits and then you got to hire somebody new who is definitely not going to be as productive as that person because they're learning, right? So it's like we have to strike that fine balance of, okay, how much is enough for this person to actually do and to still be, an effective part of the team, and is not now coming in grumpy, or they're making mistakes, or now they're slipping and falling because they're tired and creating a
Yeah.
workers' comp situation. So we have to, again, it goes back to the culture of that business, our industry in general, but then the culture that the owner and the leadership create in those individual establishments. And it's not saying, hey, we don't want people working hard or doing what they need to do, but it can't feel as though people are dreading coming to work because they
Yep.
know by the second hour they're gonna have a splitting headache and they're gonna be stressed and they're gonna be running back and forth. That isn't helpful either. And
Yeah.
so I know people always are looking at the different models of some of these fast food restaurants, and Chick-fil-A is a perfect example. I mean, I'll go in there and I'm like amazed at how many people they have working. But also I know it's because the more people they have, the more efficient they can be, the quicker they can get things out, the more volume they can absorb and take in, right? So there's a method to the madness. I have a slogan, systems equals success. In a lot of these fast food places, even though they get a bad rap for maybe the quality of food, but the systems is what's keeping them in business. It's what's helping them get to the 300, 400 franchises. And they've got it dialed in. And so we can take a page out of those books. We can apply those to
Yep.
some of these small mom and pop places and say, look, if you just dial this in, or if you train this person to do this, or you bring in that one extra person, so that way you aren't working 20 hours of overtime on everybody else, you're going to get to a point where you can level up, right?
Totally. I think the biggest, you mentioned fast food, and
Mhm.
I heard somebody talking the other recently, whatever. One of those services where you're scrolling, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, I don't remember what it was, and the guy says, "Do you understand that McDonald's runs its businesses with teenagers
Yes,
and people
I've
who
seen
have
that.
like like this awful statistic of like the average employee at McDonald's has like a ninth grade education. It's like
Mm.
it's really scary, but it's like wait, but those restaurants pump out food, and it's the systems,
I'm telling
right?
I worked at McDonald's. That was my first job at 16 in high school. And at 17, I was a manager and I was
Mm.
still in high school. I was a senior and my friends were coming through and hooking them up in the drive-through. But I was still doing what I need to. But there was a system. They wanted to send me to Burger University, which, at the first I thought that was kind of funny, but I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But yeah, I was a shift manager. I was training people, I was jumping in and covering shifts. I was helping with scheduling, helping with cash. Yes, absolutely, because the systems are there to, wash, rinse, and repeat. That's it. And so you can really teach anybody,
Yeah.
what you need to do.
And I think that the other thing for me about all of this is I know so many chefs and so many restaurateurs are like, "Oh, I don't want to be corporate." I'm like,
Right.
"I'm sorry, you don't want to be successful and make money hand over fist?"
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I agree. Like there is some soullessness to certain corporate
Yeah.
environments. I've worked in some. I've also worked in. I worked for the Four Seasons, and I worked for a couple of other small boutique hotels. I worked for the Viceroy back when there was only two Viceroy hotels in the world, and now there's like
Mm.
20.
Mm-hmm.
And like I knew that there was something special. I didn't want to grind that hard. I wasn't. That was the startup mode, that
Mm-hmm.
they were in. And that wasn't healthy. But I
Mm-hmm.
think understanding that there is certain massive value to be taken from systems, and
Absolutely.
I worked for this. My last job for a company was 7 restaurants, and I used to joke that we were the littlest, teeniest, tiniest corporation ever because
Mm-hmm.
we were 7. But those 7 restaurants, when I
Mm-hmm.
left, they were grossing 40 million a year in
Oh,
7 joints.
wow.
Ouch, is all I could say to you.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
and they had one that was 98 seats, and
Wow.
that was only pulling 4.5 million,
Mm.
right? So that there was two that were well over 7.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
It's like, oh, and it was, $24 entrees. It's not that expensive. They just
Mm.
had it and you just would turn and burn and
Yep.
burn like all day long. And we joked it wasn't whether you were going to get busy. It wasn't how busy you were going to get. It was
Mhm.
how many hours you were going to stay busy, right? And in the winter in some of those restaurants, because it was a Mexican and Southwestern food, so it was very sunshiny cuisine.
Mhm.
In the winter, you'd have 2 or 3 hours at a time. In the
Mm.
summer, you'd open at 11 on Saturday and you'd close at 11 on Saturday, and
Mhm.
from 11 to 11, the place would be full. It would
Oof.
fill up by 11:15, and it would not. You might catch a little bit of a lull at like 4:25, 4:30 for some reason, like just a little shift, but it would just be constant. You would stay full,
Oof.
you know?
I used to be the GM for the Lab Gastropub, which is part of USC Hospitality.
Okay.
And so just imagine after a USC game, or especially like a USC UCLA game,
No, thank you.
we and we had a bar. And so I remember those days where like literally the ticket printer, like you couldn't even keep up with like putting the tickets on the expo line because there were just so many. And it would just be a nonstop grind. But even in restaurants like that, and I always, tell people like there's a rhythm, if things are running right, it's almost like, a conductor and an orchestra, and you sense that rhythm and you just keep that pace going. And it's the systems that help save you and keep you on beat to make it through all of those tickets. So that even if this little thing jumps out or that jumps out, it's like, oh, no, here we go. Keep going, keep look. It just folds right in. And so that's the part that I love and enjoy coming into these restaurants, especially from the consultant side now, and helping them understand what their rhythm is. by building those systems. So that way it doesn't matter how busy they get. It's like if you just stay on this pace and keep doing these systems, you're going to survive and you're going to make everybody happy and you're going to get through the tickets and people are going to be fine. And so I just remember that and just feeling like, ugh, it's such a good problem to have, but if you are in the weeds and you don't have a system to help back you up, I mean, it's a
I just need to synopsize for half a
okay.
second.
Okay.
Find your rhythm
Yes.
by building the systems you need. Right there. That is the soundbite.
Yeah.
Find your rhythm by building the systems. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Asia, what a great conversation. Thank you
Well, thank
so
you.
much for coming to play in my little sandbox here.
Yeah.
Um,
Anytime.
I'm excited to see what your new venture is going to be
Hmm.
as a food kiosk. I think that's cool. I think that I love that you got, and I'm not wild about this term, but skin in the game.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think that having skin in the game as a consultant is amazing, and I can't wait to see what that does for your business because I feel like it can only add a solid amount of social proof to what you're doing, you know? So,
Absolutely.
um, we have to make this pact. You're gonna come back at some point and tell me how it all is blossoming because I think
Absolutely.
that it would be fun to do the hey, remember when we talked about?
Hmm. Well, we are going to be opening in winter 2024, so hopefully I can come back in a couple of months and give you an update, and you'll be able to share that with all the viewers. But I mean, for now, I do want to give a quick little plug. I will be giving weekly updates about the progress through Instagram. So if you follow us at Grilled Cheese LA, and that cheese is spelled with a Z, so CHEEZE. So Grilled Cheese LA on Instagram, or you can follow me at Ask Asia Restaurant Consulting. Just see the journey, see how we're going to flip this money, that the little bit of money that they gave us from the banks, and make it into a really viable business that's going to grow and blossom. We anticipate putting these in multiple locations. And so this is going to be
Yes,
the start of just one. But we are putting in systems so that it can be a wash, rinse, and repeat and still be successful wherever we go.
I love it. I absolutely love it. In the show notes, we're gonna put all those handles that you mentioned, and I'll make sure that everybody has the information to be able to find you, just in case they need your help,
Absolutely.
or want an awesome grilled cheese,
Yep.
because I know I do.
Yes.
Um, so to all of you out there, thank you for playing. Once again, Asia, thank you for coming to check
Thank
it
you
all
so
out, and
much.
we'll see you next time.
Yes, absolutely. You take care.
And we are.